What is going on? It's Triple M here, and I'm here with a brand new video today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave any comments, and yeah, so enjoy. Today if you do watch my channel, um, I usually talk about basketball a lot, but I also do cover, world matters and things like that. I just haven't made one of the kind of videos yet, and I felt that with everything that's going on today, and in this time, I should. So let's talk about, what's going on, the past and the present and the future. Um, you know, Let me start by saying what happened um to all black people was not right. Um, but you asked the question, how did we get to this point that we are today? It came through a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. I know that there are people out there who may disagree, and there are people others who do agree. But we have to know why we are where we are and what caused this. If you go back to the beginning, one of the biggest things that I've always thought about is, how is it possible that African Americans have brought so much to the culture of the world, not just America, but the world itself. What we've been able to invent, what we've been able to do. We saw a black man create the potato chip, and a black man, discover how to use peanut butter, and a black man, and not just black men, there's black women with the pressing comb. I mean, there's so many things that we have created in order to do things, and yet, when you look at the history of African Americans, you see one thing, and that is oppression. We have been in a place where, through everything that we have done, we have yet been oppressed. And it started, I hear about these things that happen in the news, people getting shot, people getting killed, the man who was choked. And I think, a lot of people get really upset, and a lot of people flip out. And I'm not saying you're wrong to do that, but to me, it wasn't a surprise, and I mean that in no disrespect to him or his family. I said that because it's what they do. So when it happened, yes, I was sad. I was devastated, but at the same token, I was like, you know what? It's kind of what happens. And a friend of mine was walking home from work, and was being followed by a man, and went to go, tell the police that she was being followed by a man. And the police officer basically said, "We don't have time to deal with you right now." And so, it's like, I talked to my mom about it. She was just saying that it's like we can't even go ask officers. We can The people who are supposed to protect us. It's that point. Um, and it's like, that's a big question. But just to get deeper, because there's a lot of things I want to cover in a short amount of time. So let's start. So from what I'm trying to say, you know through everything that black people have done, we are a prosperous people. Look at what we brought, look at what we bring, look at what we can do, and what we are able to do, and what we've been able to do, all them certain kind of things. And at the end of the day, we are oppressed as a people. Why is that you have, like I said, all these beautiful things that we brought to the world, but yet we are oppressed. um you know I feel as if it was just one person, one white man, who said, why are you, different from me? Why are you not the same color as me? Why are you not white, and you're black, or things like that? I believe, first of all, and this is where biblical stuff comes in. I believe that, first of all, biblically, you know, we are one of the most beautiful things that God ever created, because you have two colors on the end of the scales, and we're one. you know um there's black and there's white. You know what I mean? So there are, I mean, on both of the scales of life, you know, of color. I mean, that's, I mean, it's crazy to think about. And all in between that, we have different shades. Um, but it's it was a thing where a white man just said, because you're not the same color as me, because you don't look like me, because you know you may have a difference, you know, in sorry for that, a difference in you know, I mean, just the way you walk, the way you carry yourself. So you must be less than me. You know, white people have a very good, you know, way of making something that is regular seeming so fancy or pure. Like, you know, in order to have it, you know, you have to be white or you have to have money, um, power. You know what I mean? You know, they try to do that with a lot of stuff. You know, if you look at, I mean, you could just look at anything in the world. If you look at a car, you know, if you can afford a BMW or a Mercedes or one of these nice fancy cars, then guess what? You're on this scale. But if you're driving a regular Honda or, you know, a broken down whatever, you're on this scale. And so they made regular things out to be, you know, greater. You know, when you look at a car, yes, this car may have this features and they may have this features, but at the end of the day, I'm only going to be in the car just to go where I'm going. So if I'm going here, what's the difference between this car and this car? They're both going to get me to the same destination. There's really no difference. The only difference is, yeah, maybe this one comes with heating, conditioning and all that stuff, and may have nice seats. But at the end of the day, it's not about what is in that vehicle. It's about, is it going to get you there? Because, you know, we'll see this even in people. There will be a lot of people who look real beautiful on the outside, have all the things and everything, but when you get, you know, to go with them, you get, you know, to start moving with them, you know, they don't move because they're not a car that works, the engine doesn't work. And so you don't want that, but that's what they made it up to be, is that this is that kind of thing. You know, when you go back and you look at what black people have done, the Africans, we created one of the most beautiful things. You know, I'm not democracy, but you know, um, we created structure. We created these different things. We were the ones who brought math and astronomy and how to read and write and all these different things, the way of language, the way that we do. Like, we were the ones to bring that. The Egyptians were a powerful people. And yes, they failed, but they ran on for centuries and generations. But yet you look at the Roman Empire and you see what happened to them. They fell. We see that what black people were able to do has changed the face of America and the world today. If you look at the Moors, the Moors, you know, found the Europeans, and if you know, learn about it, the Moors are black and the Europeans are white. And so the Europeans couldn't fend for themselves. They didn't know how to plant. They didn't know how to do all these things, read, write, do all that. They didn't know that. And so they were on the verge of extinction. When they are on the verge of extinction. Now listen to what I'm saying. They are on the verge of extinction. That is that how crazy it was. And the Moors said, we're going to make sure that you survive and that you continue. And so guess what? They started to teach them how to do certain things, how to garden and how to fend for themselves and how to fish and how to do all these different things. They started to teach them all these different skills. And so guess what? They take it, they say, okay, cool, thanks for it, but you know, we're going to go ahead. And so they moved on and they left. But if you look at the past of everything, we imprint in every single thing that there is from the beginning of time. We imprint. They talk about Jesus. They say Jesus is a white man. If you read the Bible, it specifically says he's a man with woolly hair and dark skin tone. So what does that mean? How are you going to be white with dark skin tone? That don't work. So we know that. I mean, there's all these different things that go into it. Um, you know, if you go to Bethlehem or the Promised Land, you know, in Africa and then things, if you look around, then people are not white. So how can you expect Jesus to be a white man? But they've made it that way because they believe, they've made it in our minds that if you are white, you're higher for some reason. I talk about white privilege. White privilege is a big thing. Do I think it's real? I definitely do think it's real, because if you look at the way that when I walk down the street, rather than one of my white friends will walk down the street, they don't get nervous when a police officer is coming down the street. I do. Why? Because I'm black. Because maybe the way I look. Maybe because I wanted to wear a hoodie today. So if I'm wearing a hoodie, I got to feel like I got to have all these different things intact. They could talk. They could say what they want to say. They can do what they want to do. They're going to go on and live their happy life. Me, on the other hand, I have all these different emotions when I just see a police officer. So, what does that mean? That means that, like I said, we are oppressed people. And from the beginning of everything that we have done, we have always been oppressed. If you name it, I can fight it. You can say that music that came out of oppression. We were, when they were on the plantation, and they had to work, and they were losing family members, and they were being separated from their homes, and they couldn't, they were getting thrown scraps for food and all these different things. And so what would end up happening is, to get through that hard, they created a soul, a sound, of gospel and soul, all these different things, they would sing, because it was the way that they were able to go, and they were able to fight, and they were able to keep going, because it's almost motivation. If you ever notice, if you turn on music, if you're driving, if you're working out, whatever you're doing, you will do it faster, and you won't even know. You'll lose track of time, because it helps, so we created that out of oppression. And then out of that oppression came artists like Aretha Franklin and James Brown and Donny Hathaway and Earth, Wind and Fire, and all these artists, even up to now, Chris Brown and all of them, Drake and all that came out of oppression. Music came out of oppression. We were the ones in Africa to start beating our stuff, and we would make sounds. If you ever go to Africa, the sounds that they make, the music that they make, it is not on a certain beat, because it's not the way it goes. They move with the body of the movement. If you ever see a step team, they step with the body of the movement, because when you hear the beat, when you move and you dance, you're not dancing on a certain beat. You're dancing because you let your body move, and that's the way that they played their music. And so through coaches, we decided, now that we're in a place that we are today. But like I was saying, you have an artist like James Brown, who is a black man, who was the most sampled artist of all time. And so we see what he, was able to take out of, the gospel and soul, and he created, this new sound of funk. Nobody had ever seen that. We created that. But how did we create that? Out of oppression. We had our first black president out of oppression. We have everything out of oppression. One of the things that my mom was talking to me about was the fact of the matter that, we as black people have always had to fight to get that seat at the table. The biggest thing is that you see people out there, and they'll go and they'll try to do stuff. When a black man, okay, now watch this. When a black man like Tupac or Biggie Smalls, if you look at a man like Biggie Smalls says in one of his songs that, there were people who was calling the police on him because he was trying to, and it's true, selling dope and all these things just to get, by and to provide for his family. Now, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but you have to understand where he's coming from and why he did it. Because when you would go into a white place or a white job, that white man could walk in there and have less experience than you. You could have had 20 years of prior experience, but if that white man walks into a job, because of the color of your skin, automatically your application becomes revoked. It is because we are in a society where, what is the face? If you ever look at like the NFL, the NBA, or all them things, they want a face of that franchise. They want a face of the NBA. They, if you look right now, it's LeBron James, or is it Kevin Durant, or Stephen Curry, as a whole nother subject. But they want that face. And so when you're looking at, in a job, they don't want people to come in and see a black face. They want them to come in and see a white face, because they feel more comfortable. They feel more confident. So what I'm saying here is that if you look at a guy like Biggie Smalls, that's because if you went in somewhere, you knew that good and well they were not going to pay you enough to be able to provide for your family. You were going to be out there homeless. You were going to be out there on the street. So what do? You go and you start selling drugs. And then guess what? The cops come in and they take the drug, they take these black men, they put them in prison, and they resell it to the drug dealers so that they can make more money. And so these cops are crooked cops, and that's how they're moving to be able to do stuff. If you read about this, all in Harlem and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is what happened. So we see that happening. And so now, when you look at a black man, when you look at our history, we are said that we are just drug dealers, that we can't read, we can't write, that we ain't never gonna be nothing but a thug. Why? Because they have made that stereotype. Why? And I still try to figure it out. Is that as black people, why has it been that everything of our history has been made by white people? White people, Europeans, Caucasians, whatever you want to call them. And for a quick fact, the reason they call Caucasian because they were at the Caucasus Mountains. If you go back in time, you will see that they say that white people were black people. But when they went to the Caucasus Mountains, the Caucasian Mountains, basically, they started to develop different skin tone and get lighter and lighter and lighter because of the sunlight. The farther you move away from the equator, the closer you get to the equator, the more dark people that you'll find. The farther you get away, the more light people you'll find. So it's a whole big deal. But anywho, we see that how white people have literally been responsible for everything in our history. Why can we not make our own history? Now you may be saying, what do you mean we're not making our own history? We're doing this, we're doing that. But why are we doing that? We're doing it because white people have affected it. They are creating our history and their history. And so, in the future, what are we going to tell our kids, or what are we going to tell ourselves? We're going to say that, well, yeah, this is your history. This is what we had to go through. I find that we lean on some of that stuff sometimes. But here's the biggest thing is that white people have made our history. I need you to understand that. Is that they have came in and they have taken us from our homes and they have beaten us and killed us. And then they put us in, certain ways that we cannot survive. And so we always have to, we have the civil rights movement and all these different things. And we have to fight for whatever we want. And so it's like when we get there, they push us back down 4 more steps and we got to get up more. And then they push us back down, I'm saying this and I want you to listen. I believe that it's like a puzzle. If you ever watch the Hunger Games, and in the Hunger Games, the girl Katniss Everdeen, um, there are the soldiers that come after them, and they kill them, and they beat them, and they take whatever for granted. But in the mind of the powerful people, it's for their good. And here's the thing about it is everything that they do, they think is for the good, like it's going to make it better. But it's not. So we see that, and we see that in the Hunger Games, they're so mad at these soldiers for doing these things, but it's the government, President Snow in the movie, who was the one who was letting all this happen. It was him. So we have to look at who's the true enemy here. Is it these cops who are killing people on the streets, or is it the people allowing them to kill on the streets? Because that man could have, go these cops go to trial, and they're getting off with slap on the wrist, like literally. And so then we're looking like, why isn't there more being done? You're mad at these cops, but the system is allowing it to be done. So where are we as a people? One of the biggest things that is hard is, should we thank or should we hate white people? And let me not say hate, because hate is a strong word, but should we dislike them? Not all white people are bad, and that's a true fact. That's a very true fact. There are people who will march with us and riot with us who are white. And to those of you who are, thank you. But to those of you who stand against us and want to put us down, why? What do you benefit from that? And it's just like, in time, we have to be on top. There has to be that way. If you ever look at any kind of structure, any structure can be, done differently. And when we're looking at how we are right now and what our past is, we have to understand that we come from a rich background. Being black is beautiful. It's funny to me sometimes, because you'll hear black people saying, yeah, being black is beautiful. You hear black people saying, yeah, oh, black people is what it should be, and all that kind of stuff. Sorry for that. But anywho, we don't understand that being black is beautiful and all these different things, and that's what they're saying. You never really hear white people saying being white is a beautiful thing. You don't hear them saying that, because at the end of the day, everybody has emotions about what they have done in the past, about what their history is. when you look at African Americans, the way that we have been able to do certain things, um, we have been through a lot. And so what I'm trying to get over here, the point across is that as African American people, you know, um, when you say it's good to be black, they have the whole thing, black girls rock and all this. Why do we have to make our skin color a way of, I don't know, acknowledging and being who we are? It shouldn't be that way. It should be the fact that we can say that we are who we are, and that we're proud of who we are, and we are proud of who we are. But if you look at Caucasian people, white people, you see what they have done to us in the past and what they continue to do. Um, but I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. But you know, uh, just looking at who we are and what we've done as black people, you see that, like I said, everything that we have done has been controlled by white people. There was not one thing that we have done ourselves that we've been proud of. Yes, we've done certain things. Yes, we've made food and we've been able to do all these things, but we made that food out of oppression when they took, what was left. They took what was gave to them and they made it into beautiful meals. And so, yet we still hold on to the traditions today. Um, you know, uh, it's funny because we as a people, as a nation, as one race, need to understand that we are the human race. From the beginning of time, we have always been one people. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Oriental, anything. What we miss, and I'm just gonna say this, is that what we miss is the biblical part. Biblically speaking, when you look at God and you look at Jesus, oh God, you look at that, you see that what he went through, you see that he brought joy, and I'm not comparing black people to Jesus, but what I am saying is you'll see the similarity. You'll see that we brought these things to these people. We gave them, all these things. We brought math and science and all them kind of things. Same thing. God brought healing. He brought guidance. He brought all these different things to these people, Jesus Christ. And so then, they say crucify him after he has done all these things. Um, and then they say crucify him. And so he's on the cross and he's been beaten. He's been picked upon. All these things that have happened. And so we see that in the Bible, when he goes on, he is at the right hand side of the Father. What I'm trying to say is that as African American people, we have to understand that yes, we're gonna go through these things because if you saw what they did to Jesus, what do you think they're gonna do to us? As African Americans, we're gonna go through this hard trial. We're gonna go through these hard things, and we're gonna have to face these horrible, horrible things. But eventually, we will be by the right hand side of the Father. And it was when he came back, he says he had all power in his hands. So for us, that means that we will eventually be there. It says the first, will eventually be last, and the last will be first, which means that there has to be that paradigm shift. It has to flip at some point. So when we do get to that point, which we have to. There is no way. If you look at any civilization, they cannot oppress a certain amount of people for a certain amount of time. They can go on for centuries oppressing a certain amount of people. But guess what? Eventually, those people will rise up and they will succeed. If they say first you fail, try again. So, as African Americans, yes, we have these riots, we have these things that we do, these things that we say. But at the end of the day, we must understand that we will get to the point where we will be on top and not on the bottom. You know what I mean? When you look at, and here's one thing that I want to compare this to, and just listen. You know, I remember studying a little bit of science stuff, and so it said basically that the sun and the moon need each other in order to survive. If we were in total, if it was just the sun, we'd be in total, light. And eventually things wouldn't work. Water wouldn't work. Things would start happening because we do need the moon, in order to survive. People, we would die because, skin cancer, all them kind of things. But then, if it was just total darkness, and it was just the moon, that wouldn't be enough. We need that light from the sun. We need that in order to survive. So what you had me ask, what am I saying? I'm saying that as black and white people, we need each other to survive. The fighting and the arguing and everything that we've been through. Yes, white people may feel a certain way about black people. Yes, black people may feel a certain way about white people. But in order to get to a prosperous place, okay, we need each other to survive. Okay, when you look at in cultures, the Chinese, the Japanese, they have yin and yang. you know they need these to survive with each other. They believe in the oceans and the things like that. Now, let me go back for a minute and let's get deep. When you talk about African Americans, you talk about Africans. We were brought here. A religion was forced upon us. We were not Christians. We believed in certain things. We believed in the gods of, and that's with the S. We believed in the gods of, the moon and the sun and the water and farm and all that. If you look at the Indians believe that, they should thank the earth for everything that they give. They give produce, they give water, they give light, they give darkness, they give all these things, and they thanked them for that. They thanked them, but they didn't view what they had as selfishness. They didn't say, okay, this is mine. They thanked for what they had. They were grateful for what they had. They didn't believe that they owned this land. They believed that they were, visitors, guests upon this land. So you had a people of Europeans who come in here and, they basically said that, we're going to take it. We're going to do whatever we want with it. And that's exactly what they did. They brought destruction. If you look at, the Indians and what they had to go through, we see that they died much more to diseases because they didn't have the immune system, because there was no diseases around for them. They were healthy, they were a prosperous people, and so they died from these diseases that they brought upon. But I think it's only been like 50 years since the civil rights movement. And so where are we at? Since Dr. King stood up there and said, I have a dream, since Malcolm X, said we're gonna get this young man out of jail. Where have we gotten to? And it's a problem because do we thank white people for this or do we hate them for this? When you look at everything that they have put us through, you can either say, if they never put us through that, if these things never happened, we would have never known a voice like Martin Luther King. We would have never seen movement like Malcolm X. We would have never heard the sound of James Brown. We would have never, had these different things that we were able to have. So, do I thank them? I don't want to, no. But at the same token, should I say, man, whatever, I don't like you? Well, if I'm to say that, I'm saying, I'm not thankful for what for because if you never put us through that, there wouldn't be a James Brown, like I said. There wouldn't be, Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and all these different things. If we were living in a position where it was all equal, Rosa Parks would have never had to not give up her seat. And you say that would have made one big shift. Just the seat would have shifted the entire way of life as a people and how we prosper. And so it's like, comment down below. What do you think? Do you thank them or not thank them? But like I was saying, yin and yang, they need these things to survive. When you look at, black people and white people, and if they, produce a child, it is a beautiful thing. It's not, you don't look at a child and they're white, black, white, black, white, black. They are one color because they take both these beautiful colors and they make it one. If you ever look at an eclipse, when the sun, and the moon intertwine. It is beautiful. People sit outside just to see this. They need each other to survive, and it's one of the most beautiful things when they intertwine with each other. So, what does that tell you about African Americans and white people? That means that we need each other to survive. Through history, it is shown white, black, white, black, white, black, and then just like land, if we have the sun and we have the moon, and they can coincide, then out of all that comes, Orientals, Mexicans, all that comes out of that, because then we are not fighting, we are uniting, and out of all that comes beautiful, prosperous things. So, that's just what I wanted to get off my chest as far as everything that's going on now. Be grateful for where we are right now. And I say that because where we could be, you never know. You never know. We could be in a worse position if certain things hadn't happened. But know that you should never stop fighting for what is right. And eventually, as we see now, white people are starting to understand that we need these black people to survive. We need them because black people have the minds, we have visions. We know how to, say we're going to do this. White people, I can give them credit, they know how to put a plan into action. So we need each other in order to survive with this thing, to coincide. With everything going on, I was so surprised because I said, man, with this whole coronavirus thing, when as not even a nation, a world, we should be united. We have killings and murders going on. Like, what? Like, we are supposed to be literally fighting for the human race. And yet there were still murders, kidnappings, riots. Like, wow. So, that's my point about that. Um, like and subscribe, leave any comments. Thank you for all of you guys who do watch. And now, a good friend told me always fight, never quit. So I have to say, thank you. Triple M here. Peace.